being already built and just sliding it on there and bolting it down saved a whole lot of time.
A new grant will help local fire departments be on the ready for wildfire season and down the slopes.
But it was fun. It was a really cool experience, skiing against a whole bunch of different nations.
A Rocky skier using speed to put himself on the national map. Your MTN 430 News starts right now. And good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for joining us. I'm Keagan Harsha. Well, after a 2-week roller coaster ride, Republican Matt Rosendale officially announces he will seek re-election to Montana's Eastern Congressional District. The two-term U.S. representative made that announcement on social media saying, quote, "I've always said I will serve where the people of Montana feel I can be most effective, and serving Montana in Congress has truly been the honor and privilege of a lifetime." At least 9 other Republicans have also entered that crowded field, including former U.S. Representative Denny Rehberg of Billings, State Superintendent of Public Instruction Elsie Arntzen, and State Auditor Troy Downing. All have previously told MTN they would remain in the race even if Rosendale re-entered. Rosendale's announcement comes just over 2 weeks since he entered the U.S. Senate race and almost immediately dropped out, citing former President Donald Trump's endorsement of candidate Tim Sheehy. A public defender who worked in the Laurel City Court has filed a complaint accusing a longtime Laurel judge of racial discrimination. Richard Asong filed that complaint with the State Human Rights Bureau, alleging that Judge Gene Kerr instructed the Office of State Public Defenders to assign a case specifically to a Caucasian female attorney because he's black. Asong, who was a contract attorney with the Public Defender's Office, believes the judge's action caused him to miss out on a case that was available and that he was qualified to take. An attorney for the city states that Laurel will be engaging in a serious defense on behalf of the judge as required by law, but says regardless of outcome, the city does not endorse or support any sort of discrimination, racial or otherwise. The federal government has announced it's investing $5 million in a grant program to help local fire departments be ready to respond to wildfires. MTN's Jonathan Ambarian spoke to a fire chief about how these federal programs have already helped them.
This is a Type 3 wildland fire engine. It belongs to Baxendale Fire Rescue and it's kept up here at their fire station number 2 near Rimini. Leaders say that this rig has a lot of advantages for them, and it's something they were able to put together with help from grants through the federal government. Clint Loss has been the chief of Baxendale Fire since 2020. He says for this rig, the cabin engine came from the Department of Defense at a minimal cost for the department. They added a used flatbed, then got a tanker unit from the Forest Service to attach to it.
Volunteer fire departments often try to build things to save money, but we kind of sometimes run out of time is the biggest thing. So this being already built and just sliding it on there, bolting it down, saved a whole lot of time.
The truck allows them to transport water much faster to a fire line. It has a hose and sprayer built in, and Loss says it's a good fit for their needs.
Well, this particular truck is real short wheelbase and 4-wheel drive, so it gets into a lot of places that we may need to. In our district, it's rough to get to.
Earlier this month, the U.S. Department of the Interior announced a pilot program offering millions of dollars in grants for local agencies to buy slip-on water tankers. That program includes smaller units designed to quickly convert a pickup truck into an engine. Grants will range from $10,000 to $200,000, and they're open to agencies serving populations of 25,000 or less. Loss says he thinks departments ought to consider opportunities like this if they're trying to upgrade.
Volunteer departments should look into these type of grants. They can be really helpful.
Fire departments wanting to submit applications for this latest grant have until March 21st to get them in. In Rimini, Jonathan Ambarian, MTN News.
On this Wednesday, I'm here in the Heights, as you can see, First Interstate Arena behind me, where a lot of fans and teams are going to be here for the Southern B Divisional Tournament. Now, if you're traveling in from the west, you had to have a firm grip on the wheel. We had some very strong wind gusts early this morning, and that's going to continue going forward. But Livingston's Airport had a 92-mile-an-hour wind gust, the second highest wind gust ever reported, and that is well into Category 1 hurricane force. Now, we're still going to have all that wind through Thursday. Thursday. Thankfully, not as much blowing and drifting snow because we're going to have temperatures starting to warm, and that will reduce the visibility problems, but still plenty of wind in the forecast. Ed's going to tell you how much longer that's going to last and what else is coming for the next 7 days in just a few minutes.
Local and federal law enforcement agencies say they've shut down 2 meth traffickers in Park County. Officials say that Oscar Navarez and James Marietta were responsible for the bulk of meth distribution in Livingston for nearly a year. Those defendants were allegedly trafficking meth from Idaho to a residence in Livingston. However, undercover law enforcement says they bought drugs off of Marietta in Belgrade and Bozeman as well. Other Park County residents were also caught in the bus and currently face drug and firearm charges. The case all part of a Project Safe Neighborhoods, which brings together federal agencies with local law enforcement and task forces.
The extraordinary multi-agency investigative work, we have successfully dismantled a drug ring that brought large quantities of methamphetamine from Idaho to Livingston for redistribution.
Law enforcement first learned of Navarez and Marietta in 2020 when they trafficked meth to their residence in Park County using what they say were local dealers and addicts to then redistribute the drugs. Well, a big shakeup on Capitol Hill today as Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell announces he will be stepping down as the Republican leader of the Senate, although he does plan to finish out his Senate term. Skylar Henry reports from Capitol Hill.
It's time for the next generation of leadership.
On the Senate floor, his work home for more than 40 years, Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell announced he will be stepping down as the chamber's Republican leader in November.
To serve Kentucky in the Senate has been the honor of my life. To lead my Republican colleagues has been the highest privilege.
McConnell, who turned 82 last week, is the longest-serving Senate leader in history, deftly wielding power within the GOP for almost 2 decades. But the Kentucky senator, who considers himself a Ronald Reagan conservative and believes in strong international alliances, has found himself at odds with former President Donald Trump and others in the party over issues including NATO and foreign assistance for Ukraine.
I believe more strongly than ever that America's global leadership is essential to preserving the shining city on a hill that Ronald Reagan discussed.
Fellow lawmakers weighed in on the announcement.
It will sort of be hard to imagine this place without him as the Republican leader.
This is a welcome development. My only question is why wait so long? November's a long time away.
McConnell says he plans to serve out his Senate term, which ends in January 2027. Skylar Henry, CBS News, Capitol Hill.
We are just a week and a half removed from a controversial ruling by the Alabama Supreme Court. The judges in that case deciding that an embryo is a child. Well, since then, the domino effect has been swift, with IVF clinics pausing services and an embryo shipping company cutting off business to Alabama. Now even lawmakers are scrambling to fix it. Alex Miller has the latest there.
State House Minority Leader Anthony Daniels has introduced a bill that says an embryo fertilized outside of the uterus is not considered a person. The Democrat says he specifically chose to keep the bill incredibly narrow, not to wade into the murky and often politically polarizing waters of personhood and viability.
The scientific fact is that the reason you can freeze an embryo is because it's not alive. Science also explains why we can't freeze a living human being and simply thaw them out later. It's not just science, it's common sense. These can be complicated issues. That's why this bill will not attempt to dictate where life begins or ends. Rather, it will clarify the law, a fundamental fact that a fertilized embryo outside of the human uterus is certainly not any form of person under law.
For him, this makes the issue much clearer and more likely to succeed in a GOP-controlled legislature. Some Republicans have indicated support for IVF, but it's still unclear whether they're interested in signing on to his bill. Daniels told Scripps News a ballot measure to let voters decide should be off the table for many reasons, including, he says, that this issue cannot wait until the end of the year. Republican Senator Katie Britt told Scripps News she supports efforts led by the state legislature to protect IVF, but won't say whether the justices erred in their ruling. And a doctor told us he's concerned about the trickle-down effect, that OBGYNs might be leaving the state. They won't be able to recruit good fertility talent. And even here at the University of Alabama at Birmingham, they've paused treatments here at their clinic. But also, just a couple of days before this decision came down, they were granted a fellowship. That now is very much up in the air. Alex Miller, Scripps News, Birmingham, Alabama.
Back here closer to home, a Sheridan, Wyoming police officer shot and killed in the line of duty will be laid to rest on Friday. Sergeant Nevada Krinke died 2 weeks ago on February 13th after he was shot while serving a trespass warning. Krinke grew up here in Montana, graduating from Bozeman High School in 2009. He then went on to serve 8 years in the Army before becoming a police officer. Krinke's funeral is set for this Friday at 1 p.m. at the Sheridan College Dome. We will be bringing that to you here at Q2 via our KTVQ app and our channel MTN. You can find that at 2-2 and also over on Channel 5 on DirecTV. Again, that's going to start at 1 p.m. We'll also have extensive news coverage of the funeral service at 4:30, 5:30, and 10, including that large procession through Sheridan as Sergeant Krinke's body is escorted to the funeral service. Well, still to come here on the MTN 430 News on Q2, the race to state is on as February madness tips off on the hardwoods across Montana, including right here in Billings. We'll have highlights from divisional action in just a bit. But first, the temperatures are once again on the way up, but will they keep moving in that direction? Ed 7-day forecast coming up right after this.